What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
And we new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's get it.
Lynchings of Italians took place all over the South. Northern Italians considered Southern Italians racially inferior and too African to be a part of Europe. The story of the Italian immigrants' journey from a racialized pariah in the 19th century to white Americans in the 20th century sheds light on how much race is just a construct in the United States. Italians became white because of something that happened in Louisiana. Hi, my name is Danielle Romero, and I'm so glad that you're here with me again on my channel, where I talk about genealogy, ancestry, hidden heritage, and it's amazing how interconnected the world is. Congress had initially envisioned a white, Protestant, and culturally homogenous America when in 1790 it declared that only, quote, free white persons could become naturalized citizens. Waves of culturally diverse immigrants from Europe in the 19th century changed this perception, and Americans adopted a more restrictive, politicized view of whiteness. Because of their darker complexions, Italians, in particular Southern Italians, like my dad's family, were not considered white. This is particularly dangerous in the American South, where Italians were the second most common targets of lynchings, and in some areas were semi-segregated. Italian immigrants, particularly those from southern Italy, like my family, faced racial discrimination in both Italy and the United States. I was able to find some documents showing my dad's great aunts coming over, and on the manifest for the ship, they would mark your nationality. A lot of them would say Italy, 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 and for his family it said Italy, and then as a separate designation, South. Oh. Just to let you know that they weren't Northern Italian. Northern Italians considered Southern Italians racially inferior and too African to be a part of Europe. In the United States, Italian immigrants were subjected to racist stereotypes in books, magazines, newspapers, and faced discrimination in schools, movie houses, labor unions, and public spaces. Italians who accepted what was considered a black job or chose to live among African Americans, which was a very common thing. They often integrated into the same neighborhoods, were marked as black, and they faced violence from the mobs in the South in the same way. A huge part of this history, the Italian American experience, is connected to New Orleans. I want to talk about Sicilians and Italians navigating the Jim Crow South, because
interesting.
That's gonna be very interesting. You know, y'all know we're from Louisiana.
Heard about it, yep.
And I'm from New Orleans, so I learned little pieces. They didn't teach the whole history, but like if you go around some places, there's still Italian communities. You'll find out the history there. And it's crazy because now, you know, like some of our recipes and things, it has Italian influence there.
I hear you on that.
So I would love it if like they taught more of this in our Louisiana schools, but they don't.
Yeah, it's crazy that they don't. I mean, they talk a little about slavery, and then when you hear about this, a lot of people are not, you know, informed. 100%, at least 100%. Yeah, they was getting hung. Just like all the black folk out there that's getting hung around that town. That's crazy.
And that's how we ended up with Columbus Day.
Yeah,
because of what happened in New Orleans.
Yo.
To my surprise, Italians and Sicilians, and I'm going to use that term interchangeably because for my family it kind of is interchangeable, but it is different. And so when we're talking about Italy, you know, you have like the boot, and my family is mostly from like toe of the boot in southern Italy, and then Sicily is this island that was its own kingdom and then became part of Italy proper. I'll probably be using them interchangeably because I use them interchangeably for my own self-identification. So between 1880 and 1920, there was an economic crisis following this unification that was happening in Italy, and there was just like a lot of social unrest, and about 4 million Italians, who were mostly Southern Italians, like my family, they immigrated to the United States. A lot of these Italian Americans and Sicilian Americans were recruited to fill a labor shortage that was produced by the rapidly industrializing United States economy, and a lot of immigrants arrived with basically the clothes on their back. The lack of formal education and the limited English proficiency that restricted a lot of Italian immigrants to jobs like manual labor and low-paying jobs. A lot of Italians kind of settled in these neighborhoods called like Little Italy. A lot of racism against Italians. This was not just in the South and not in the North. It was kind of across the board. Italian immigrants and African Americans often lived in the same neighborhoods and worked together, and they were considered basically the enemies of the Jim Crow laws. The Italian newcomers encountered propaganda against them when they landed on American soil. They were described in the press as swarthy and kinky-haired, and members of a criminal race, epithets like Dago and Guinea, which was a term of derision. There was worse ones that I...
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Just the hair alone is what separated the people. Like, if you had curly hair and all that stuff, you didn't meet the beauty standard. And they talked about you. They wrote about you in magazines. They made sure anybody who had hair like that wasn't working a certain pay wage. It's like everything about your hair alone separated you from the people.
And that's crazy because we all know it don't really matter, especially today, all over the world.
Yeah.
It don't matter what race you are. You have different hair textures in different races.
100%.
Like, in our family alone, we have different hair textures. And I'm speaking of Dion and I and our children. We have different hair textures.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's crazy.
Wouldn't feel comfortable saying on here. The penalties, though, of blackness went well beyond name-calling in the apartheid South. Italians who had come to this country as, quote, free white persons, according to one article, were marked as black. Italian immigrants were often indifferent towards America's racial hierarchy. And in 1899, there were 2 Italian shopkeepers and 3 customers were also Italian. They were lynched in Tallulah, Louisiana, for refusing to wait on Caucasians before African-American customers. Lynchings of Italians took place all over the South: Mississippi, Texas, Florida, Kentucky, Illinois, and also places like Colorado and New York. Despite being well regarded in New Orleans in the 1870s, Italian immigrants faced negative stereotypes in northern newspapers. Italian language newspapers frequently would report the heinous crimes. In Italy, there was a song called The Five Poor Italians, which was written in honor of the Tallulah victims. As the Italian population grew, anti-Italian riots took place, and hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan mobilized to intimidate and oftentimes cause physical harm to the immigrants. The turning point for the Italian experience happened because of an event in Louisiana, in New Orleans. On October 15, 1890, New Orleans police chief David Hennessy was assassinated outside of his home. As Hennessy lay dying, he whispered, "The Dagos did it." Within days, 250 members of the city's Italian community were arrested purely because of their ethnicity. 19 Italian men were indicted for murder. After a jury delivered not guilty verdicts in March of 1891, a mob of over 20,000 people gathered outside the prison where the men were being held in Louisiana, yelling, "Hang the Dagos." The gun-wielding mob stormed the jailhouse. 9 men, including prominent businessmen, were shot inside the jail. Victims were dragged outside and hanged from the lampposts.
Ooh, Lord,
and
Lord.
I don't want to go into the details of this. You can Google it and do that, but I'm not going to put all the nitty-gritty on here. In addition to the 11 men who were lynched, 5 prisoners were severely wounded in the attack, and they died soon after. A grand jury cleared those who were involved in the lynching, including John Parker, who was the late elected governor of Louisiana. In 1911, he was quoted saying Italians were, quote, "little worse than the Negro, but filthier in their habits, lawless and treacherous," unquote. Many newspapers asserted that Italians were responsible for their own lynchings, and the media's coverage of the trial and lynching marked the entrance of the word mafia into the nation's vocabulary. Historians have shown that America's response to the lynching was influenced by racist stereotypes about Italians that was propagated in northern newspapers.
Wait, let's talk about that.
We know what mafia represents in the movie essence, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, when we're watching it, the family, the pasta eating, like, just the whole 9 yards of just how they want to paint the picture of how they look. But
New York.
in time's sake, it was not used for that. The term was used for a very, degrading time.
Wow, okay. That's sort of like the N-word then, right? How our people changed it to mean a form of endearment, although I don't use the word.
Yeah, I feel you, but I don't know. You have to ask someone.
You're going to have to ask y'all.
We're going to have to ask somebody
Because
to see how that feels when you hear that.
That word.
Yeah.
Because when we see it in movies and it's played by, now it's like, I don't even know who it's played by. I will hope that it's played by the Italians because it's Italian characters.
Right.
But, dang, like, how y'all feel about that word? How do y'all, I don't know.
This is, I don't know.
Italian immigrants were initially welcomed in Louisiana after the Civil War to replace the emancipated black laborers, but their proximity to the African Americans led to them being viewed as not fully white and now eligible for persecution, including lynching. Darwinists asserted that Italians were a subhuman race, the quote, missing link between humans and apes. The caption of this cartoon published in Life magazine in the early 1900s.
They told that to the lady. I forgot her name, but she was in the circus because of her body.
Dang, the South African.
Saw the S if I'm not mistaken. Sarah Bartman. Yeah, her. Yeah. They told her the same exact thing, and they put that all over the world to hear. Because they thought they figured something out, which was funny as heck, because I'm like, how can you try to... It don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? So that's wild that they even say that about y'all.
What's crazy is it's like, okay, then what is white?
What is white?
That's why it's like...
Where'd it go?
As a proud black person, like I'm proud of the resilience of my people. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of every single thing that I'm able to do now because of my people. But it's like the United States have just, it's separated us just based off of skin color, and it's like if they're not white, then what is white?
Y'all was mad at everybody, boy. Ain't nobody was safe under y'all wing.
Cause I mean, in the colonies, they were all from different places. So,
what is white? I mean, okay.
Spoken English with an Italian accent. The Italian shoeshiner, or WAP, possesses ape-like features, carries a stiletto knife, and is of low intelligence and childlike in his reasoning, and eats garlic and spaghetti. You know, it's kind of interesting to me when there's this attempt from one group to kind of degrade another group. It's kind of just like the same playbook, right? Every single time. And it's been interesting to me as I studied my mom's heritage from Louisiana, you know, African American, Hispanic, Native American, like all of these groups that have kind of taken their turns in being the low man, you know, in this hierarchy. To preserve the American racial structure that was believed to exist, the United States passed the Immigration Act in 1924, which established quotas for the admission of immigrants and it banned immigration from certain countries entirely. While earlier legislation just placed caps on immigration, the 1924 law sought to further restrict immigration of Southern and Eastern Europeans and Africans, and specifically ban the immigration of Arabs and Asians. The law reduced Italian immigration by 98.7%. So basically, no more Italians were allowed to come over after 1924. Whoa. Okay. This political cartoon from the era reveals two of the act's primary targets, which was the Italians and the Chinese. How did Italians become white? You would think with all this animosity towards this group and these attempts at keeping them from coming over, it was really, like, it totally shocked me. And I realized that Italians became white because of something that happened in Louisiana. So the federal holiday that's honoring Christopher Columbus, which is, you know, kind of on the chopping block right now, celebrated on October 14th, played a significant role in the process of Italian Americans being accepted as white during the 20th century. President Benjamin Harrison proclaimed Columbus Day as a national celebration in 1892, following the lynching of the 11 Italian immigrants in New Orleans as an attempt to placate Italian Americans and avoid a diplomatic conflict with Italy. Even though it was a very different experience than my mom's family, it's just another part of this American story of kind of losing your way as you become American. I think there is a balance to that. I think coming to a country and becoming a citizen means that you need to kind of be a part of the family now, right? But does that mean that we all want to be homogenous? We don't want to have any shred of the parts of the world that we came from or that our family came from?
Right.
And obviously the answer to that is no. It makes me sad when I was researching for this video to kind of understand some of these things came to be. The story of the Italian immigrant's journey from a racialized pariah in the 19th century to white Americans in the 20th century sheds light on how much race is just a construct in the United States, and hierarchies can change over time. Right. You're in this group here and you're in this group here, and nothing has changed except the passage of time and the way people perceive things. That's just incredible to me. It makes me wonder in the future, things that we hold on to so dearly right now this is the truth, this is the reality. Will our children believe that? Will our grandchildren believe that? the penalties of not being considered white in America, the ripple effects of those. Today, you know, as I've shared on this channel and many of the other videos, I grew up considering myself white. And, you know, what does that mean? Okay, well, what it means is on my dad's side, I knew that we were Sicilian, Italian, and my mom's side, we weren't really sure, which is kind of why I did the whole Finding Lola stuff. But growing up, I had this understanding, at least, that I was Sicilian or I was Italian, and to me, that meant I was white. Now, it's interesting that being removed 100 years or so, what a different experience I would have had. What a different experience so many of us would have had 100 years ago to today. So Italian Americans are kind of an endearing part of the American subtext. And yet the history was rough and bloody. This same structure has been applied over and over and over again to all different groups. Let me know if you were familiar with the New Orleans lynchings of these Italian Americans. Plan on interviewing my dad for the channel and kind of getting his, you know, thoughts on this. I'd love to know, like, what do you think about Italians and Sicilians suddenly becoming white at the...
Make sure you guys check our channel out. This is some earthquaking information. Earthquaking. Because it's different, bro. It's like you hear about our story.
Yeah.
And how many years and years and years we've been through things. But then when you look around, right there in New Orleans, they was going through the same... Italians was going through the exact same thing.
And what's crazy is we've both been through the Louisiana school system, and it's not taught.
And it's still not taught on either side.
Well, I don't know about now, but hopefully now things like this is taught. History, if you're going to teach history as a subject, you got to teach history as a subject. You can't leave things out, especially for the people.
Can't paint one side good either.
And you got to tell it just like it was. You can't tell it from different perspectives. Well, no, you need to tell it from different perspectives, but it can't be one-sided, told from just whatever voice they want with the prerogative. You can't tell it from that side, right? What I was gonna say, because we've both went through Louisiana school system. I did go through New Orleans school system. Obviously, I didn't graduate through the school system, Katrina, but that was not taught how it was taught. Like I said, you had to go around the city, learn things, go to museums, go to restaurants to learn that type of history.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All people in Louisiana at least should know it. And I say Louisiana because in the United States, all states have their own school system, their own school curriculums.
Right, on what they're teaching.
Yeah, we're all not taught the same things on the same different levels. Same level, whatever. In the United States, if we're going to preach that we are such this salad bowl and everybody is appreciated, why are we making spinach lettuce?
I thought the spinach and the lettuce was both green. They could have got the same, impact.
Just
Listen,
different things, right?
I'm definitely seeing it that it was an application thing. That they wanted people to identify so they can know who is what, where they are, and how they could keep control of certain groups. Especially with people all coming in. You know what I'm saying? So, for instance, all the white folk, they definitely had the best end of the pie, the best slice. They definitely had the main control over the narrative of how people see a lot of things, how they view a lot of things. They identified them differently because of their hair. And that's all I feel like that she mentioned on. Yeah. And that as well. It's just wild to me though. It just keeps everyone separated, especially when you can't put something on the application that is meaningful to you and you are who you are, but then they start to put a limit to it. And now you can only identify as this, so you can be viewed as this, and it's not.
And what's the real benefit?
What is the real? It's not.
What's the difference, especially in 2023? You know what's interesting to me, and it's so disheartening to hear that it happened.
It is. I
in
agree.
Louisiana, because in Louisiana we appreciate the differences and the similarities in each other. You know, the Cajun, the Creole, the just being black.
Especially when it comes to our food, man.
Yes, and we love our culture in Louisiana. And we see the Italian influence. We see the German influence. We see all of these influences. And even, I don't want to say exactly what, but the recent heartbreaking thing that's going on now in the world. When that came about, and we didn't even know that we had a Palestinian community in Louisiana. We didn't know that. And we saw those protests and like, hold up, what? But it's like, it's just so heartbreaking. Like, in 2023, yes, we can be proud of our heritage, but Why is it still such a division?
Finding your roots, man. That's why it's important to know your history. I feel like this is going to open our eyes. Overall, man, just let us know how you guys perceive all this information, because we like to dive into it and get y'all input on it.
Yeah, and we definitely want Italian Americans to dive in on this. Did y'all know this happened?
Did y'all? Because
and our Italians that are still in Italy, let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, like I want to know if this is in schools at all. Has this been talked about in your homes?
Yeah.
Like, we want to know. Like,
yeah. Go check out her channel.
Yeah, facts.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.